Hello, today we will learn how to draft a project concept paper. And my name is Jae Sung-kwak. I'm from the Kyunghee University of Korea. This lecture focuses on techniques of drafting the project concept paper, which is the first formal document submitted to donor agencies. My lecture consists of 3 parts, actually 4 parts. First, we will start with drafting a project concept paper. And second, what kind of contents are there? And thirdly, we move on to the one critical contents of the project concept paper, which is project description and result management skills. And finally, I will bring in a couple of the cases so that you can learn from the actual PCPs, project concept papers. First, project concept paper, PCP, is the first document to be developed into a project. So this is a proposal containing a brief description of the ideas of the project and the objectives to be pursued. Paper should be submitted to donors, normally without a formal call for proposals, but you need a prior arrangement for that. Previously, the PCP was rather a very briefly drafted 1 or 2 pages. However, nowadays, it is getting increasingly requiring professional involvement accompanied by a pre-feasibility study. So some PCPs as long as like 20 to 30 pages. So that's because there are many kinds of project, well-developed project competing each other for the funding. There are some principles. It's quite simple and straightforward. We call this 3 I's. The first principle of the PCP is interesting. It should be interesting. You make the readers interested in your project. Second principle is informative. You have to give them information enough to decide the assistance. And thirdly, it should be integrative. You have to keep them understand the document by itself. So remember, there are 3 I principles of PCP: interesting, informative, and integrative. This is some of the tips that you can think of before you start to draft the project. Not all PCPs are survived into actual project. So you have to well develop your project in drafting the PCP as you're investing your time and resources in making that. So I have made a couple of interesting tips so that you can consult before you draft the PCP. First, I want you to know about the global trend in development cooperation, especially try to align with the specific sustainable development goals, especially SDG Goal 11 related to sustainable cities. Secondly, you have to align with the donor, and please check with the country partnership strategy and define the sectors. Country partnership strategy or country assistance strategy are the mid-term cooperation paper between a donor and a partner. So any donor or any partner are supposed to draft this country partnership strategy, and they define the sectors and themes of their cooperation already. So the area or sector that you are trying to develop in your project is ideally located in the CPS of your country. And think about the program-based approach, PBA. Program-based approach means if your project concept is well fit into your country development program or donor program. So many donors, especially development banks, they do have the program targeting to promote the development of the cities. So urban regenerations or urban transportations or waste controls, and those are well programmed already. So try to get a piece of your idea to fit into those existing programs. And the possibility of other resource mobilization, even if we are applying for a single donor, so always open the possibility that you are also cooperating with other donors, other resources, as well as your own resources. So those multiple donor, multiple partnership approach is ideal, very ideal in the development cooperation. And the result framework is the most important ingredient of your PCP. How are you going to achieve your defined outputs and results with this project? So we are not just talking about the deliverables, but we have to clearly address what are the initial outcome, what would be the ultimate outcome, and also the impact you are trying to achieve. So these are the global trend in development cooperation you have to think of when you draft it. Second is the donor strategy. Every donor have a sector strategy and they have standard indicators. And also we have to think about the budget allowance. So how much budget is spent in the particular sector or in the country, in the partner country. So always check the numbers. If the donor spend too much on this sector or a particular partner, there will be not much of a chance for you to get it. Third pillar is development effectiveness. I have briefly hinted about the result framework. Yes, development effectiveness is the most important ingredient, the factor of your project. So to be able to do that, you have to well define the problems and feasibilities. And also try to always think about the evaluability of proposed result, outcomes and impact. Some outcomes and impacts are described as very blur fashion, but it should be well pinpointing the concrete result and outcomes and targets and indicators you are trying to achieve, ideally in numbers. So we call this evaluability. And also what kind of components you are trying to introduce for achieving a result. So the road to result is the very, very important judging criteria actually by the committee members who are supposedly deciding whether your project is good or not, or whether it is able to be funded or not. And number 4 is the country background. So you know better than myself about your own country situation and the sector-specific issues and problems. So you have to fully align with the country background and conditions and executing agency qualifications. Your government agencies and ministries are well qualified, you are well dedicated in this particular matter. You have to show that. And also stakeholder and beneficiary analysis can be included. Who will be the ideal target groups and beneficiaries, and also what are the other stakeholders who can critically influence the delivery and the result of this project. And definitely target region relevance, very, very important. And finally, project management side consideration is also should be well shown. Something like possibility of local procurement if your project needs some hardware or even the experts or other project inputs. And finally, component management, how you're going to manage all those hardwares and softwares in your project. So whether it's really manageable and deliverable is the criteria for this. So those 5 tips I'm telling you are very important general tips, whatever project you are developing in modern days. Okay. Let me move to the contents of the project concept paper. Every donor has its own format of the PCP. What I brought here is the standard PCP format of KOICA, Korea's donor agency. And then later I'm going to show you some other samples from AFDV and WIGO as well. And here in standard, but even if the formats are slightly different from one another, the concept, the contents are basically identical. The the usual project concept paper start with section 1, which is a basic project information, which is a synopsis of your draft. And the section 2 is actually project description, what you are going to do with this project. So you illustrate initially the goals and impacts, and then outcome, outputs, and activities. So with this funding, with this concept, what are you going to do should be in section 2. And section 3 is a project rationale. That means why this project should be funded and existing with a well-rounded analysis of the past and the present. So initially, you provide a situation analysis, and then more importantly, then problem statement is followed, and then country development strategies and justification for intervention. So it's kind of as-is analysis. There is a situation, there is issues and problems, and then some of the measures to be taken to address this problem. So this is your logic. So in the previous section, we have shown the actual project concept, but here in this section, you have to show the rationales of why this project should exist. And number 4 section is a stakeholder analysis. As I mentioned before, who are the target beneficiaries? Beneficiaries may be direct beneficiaries or the indirect beneficiaries, and also other important stakeholders, both in public and private, and often international as well. So this is a very important part of analysis. Section 5 is a project management and implementation plan. So how are you going to manage it? Are you going to hire external consultants? Are you going to hire the construction company if you need that? And then what kind of constructions, methodologies, and management would be included, are followed in the project management section. And then later, sustainability and monitoring and evaluation scheme and risk and assumptions, and all those are also part of your project concept paper. For now, as you are not conducting the feasibility studies, the sustainability can be described in a simple manner, and also monitoring and evaluation can be rough, and risk and assumption can be also a little blur. However, these are the contents that you have to provide. And then this is a formal chapters of the project concept paper, but your PCP should be accompanied by some important key informations, as you see in the annex. So project location map, so project design matrix, project work plan, estimated budget sheet, and environmental screening checklist, and gender and development screening checklist. Especially number 5 and 6, they are increasingly important cross-cutting issues that you have to check if your project is expecting to influence the environment, then you have to provide a serious mitigation measure as well. Out of all these annexes, so I'm going to pinpoint the number 2, the project design matrix, in my lecture, as this is closely related to the result management, the thing I have emphasized here and there many times. So project design matrix itself is a tool to make the result management. At the same time, this is a snapshot of the whole project into a simple or simplified table. So here, to be able to understand the project design matrix, PDM, or logical framework, you have to understand the different levels of stages of a project. So your project may start with the input. Inputs are budget, financial and physical resources, and activities and outputs are deliverables when you complete the project. That's why inputs, activities, and outputs are like backgrounded with red color here. If you go over to the pink color of outcomes and impact, this is a sphere of influence beyond your control because you end your project with the generation of outputs, and then midterm and long-term outputs and impacts will be generated with time. Usually we expect outcomes to be generated after 2 years, impact generated after 5 years of the completion of the project. What do I mean by the completion of a project? Completion point is the timing that you generate an output and you close your project. So these are the deliverables of your project. So some samples are listed up here from the healthcare sector. So just for your reference. Let me go deeper here. This is actual project design matrix table or format. Its most simplified version is 4x4. So it starts from input activities and outputs. As I mentioned, with the generation of output, your project finishes. So the red line is the end line of your project, but your result will come out from outcome and impact level. So outcome is a direct or immediate result of a project. Impact is long-term development goal. So in your first column, you provide these narrative summaries of your project. So if your output is installation of the e-government system to manage the sustainable cities, then you will provide some servers and softwares and training courses. All those are outputs. And then outcome will be measured something like the efficient management of the city administrations. And the impact would be utilities and benefits to your citizens as well, something like. So outcomes and impact will be generated with time. But strictly, outputs are the immediate deliverables of your project. In your second column, is defined as objectively verifiable indicators, OVI. This is indicators in numbers that you have to present in the first place, but in the end, you're supposed to achieve those indicators. So output indicators are deliverables, some hardwares and softwares and capacity building programs. So those trained people and the provided personal computers. If the construction is involved, you will like clearly say you provide a building or interior and all those. However, outcomes are different. We combine all those activities and outputs, and then what do you expect from here? How much efficiency? The speed of your service delivery to the general public from the city government can be illustrated here, can be shown here. Like something like a service usually takes 1 week, but with this e-government system, a service can take half an hour. Yeah, these are the indicators. And then the third column is the means of verification. That means how are you going to achieve the indicator? So whether you conduct a survey, whether you consult the objectively published the data sources of your government, and something like. Final column is important assumptions. What are the assumptions to achieve each level of each stages in your project? So to be able to achieve the outputs on time, there should be some assumptions. You need the cooperation among those project team members, and also you expect the cooperation of the beneficiaries and constructions completed on time so that other program can be followed, and etc. So the assumptions are also important in outcome and impact phase, because those outcomes are future prospective. So you can also assume to be able to achieve the faster delivery of services, what kind of assumptions? Because you are just delivering the one project in the whole city government, but some other government may be lagged behind comparing to your own project. So in this regard, the assumption could be you need a cooperation with other departments to deliver your own services as well. So think about it. What would be the assumptions to achieve those outputs and outcomes and impact from your part? So this is a kind of explanation of each cell that I briefly explained it to you. So I don't want to go through all this, so you can comfortably take a look at. And PDM should be prepared on the 5 principles. We call this SMART. Please take a special consideration on that. First principle is S, specific. So it should be specific. Whom are you targeting and where you're going to be and what are you going to do and how are you going to deliver and why you are doing this. So whatever descriptions you make in your PCP or PDM, then it should be specific. And then it should be measurable. You are talking about the faster delivery of services. You may just want to say faster and better and whatever. However, this is not the measurable description. So how much time, how many beneficiaries, and how intense. So ideally in numbers, you describe your own result. And A stands for achievable or agreeable. So is it feasible? Is it agreed by all stakeholders? Also, that's a very important principle also. And the R means relevant. So outputs and outcomes and impact should be well interrelated among themselves. And finally, T stands for time specific. The nature of a project is that you have to complete it within given amount of time. And that's the output that you will generate. But even the outcome and impact phase, you have to design within 2 years, within 3 years, we're going to achieve X, we're going to achieve Y, something like. So usually you describe, as you see here, by the end of the 3 years of participation, something like. Okay, finally, in the theory, the PDM should be prepared in the reverse order from project process, but in practice, input and outputs are first. That means, in theory, you have to set the goal first, long-term impact goal first, and then you lower the level to outcome level to be able to achieve the outcome. You have to think about what kind of output you need. And then to be achieved the output, then what kind of activities and how much budget is needed. Then it is a natural and logical process. So you set the goal and purpose, and you set the indicator, and you decide the target level, and then you prepare action plan for achieving the target. And then finally, you think about assumption or risk. This is more like a theoretically or politically correct way of drafting your PCP and PDM. However, in reality, in practice, you have to check the budget first. So how much you are talking about. If it's a simple technical assistance, roughly you can spend like $500,000 or less. Yeah. If it's a loan project, somehow you have to deal with your own government and also the donor agencies as well. And then then scope can be decided with the scale of the budget. Based on the scale of the budget, and you think about the output, what kind of output you can make it. How much construction, how many people you can train, and then all those scales can be decided. And based on that, you think about activities and components, and then let's think about the outputs and impacts later. Definitely there is a goal you have to achieve, but not every project, not even a single project can do a significant impact to achieve this main goal. Because we are rather fragmented, our budgets or resources are limited, and our activities are very small. But with many projects and many initiatives, both in and out of your country, we are moving towards to achieve this grand goal. So your project is a kind of one piece, one step towards that goal. So even if you cannot achieve the whole goal with this single project, so at least you can generate the outputs and outcomes towards this goal in this. So in reality, so let's think about the numbers and budget and decide the scale, and then find the way towards the main goals and targets. Okay, that's the general theoretical introduction of the drafting the project concept paper. Now I will be introducing some cases with AFDV as we go with the actual project concept paper. Oh, hello, welcome back. We will be reviewing the actual project concept paper. I'm grateful to African Development Bank for sharing this document. Document we're going to review together is a project concept paper of Lesotho e-government infrastructure phase project, which was submitted in January 2018. Here we have a title page and later list of abbreviations and acronyms here, and number 1 section is a project information. As I mentioned before, this is the synopsis of a project. So country is Lesotho, and borrower, sector, and all other informations are here, and including the financial information and country context, and also compliance and safeguard policies and strategies, and estimated resource requirements, and etc. Unlike other PCPs, AFDB PCP invite result-based logical framework, PDM, to appear in the first part of your PCP. So as you mentioned here, impact, outcomes, and outputs and key activities are written here. Resources are actually inputs. So the AFDB loan and co-financing and government contributions and etc. So on the whole, this project is somewhere around the $17 million one. And we have 5 components, key activities. So number 1 is expansion of mobile telephony coverage to rural areas. Number 2 is expansion of fiber infrastructure. Number 3 is rollout of e-service centers. Number 4, establishment of national electronic payment system. Number 5 is capacity building and project management. As you see here, number 1, 2, 3s are strictly hardware, and telephone coverage, and they will build, as you see here in the output, they will build a number of mobile towers constructed supporting 4G services, and also black hole fiber expansion. So number 2 and number 3 is e-service, so number of service centers built, and so they are all hardwares and related to the constructions. And number 4 is software building, the number of national e-payment switch built and installed. I think this is a combination between hard and soft, number 4 and 5. And then national electronic payment system is a GEPG will be developed. This is number 5 is software, and number 6 is capacity building and project management, providing the training programs and executed. So, as you see here, activities and outputs are very closely related, and some numbers are given. Okay. After the project is completed, what kind of result we are expecting? So number 1 result as an outcome will be increase the internet coverage and performance in rural and unserved areas. So baseline is 97 currently. So target is 99.6%. So our achievement will be 2.6% point of the 4G penetrations. And another result indicator will be improving financial inclusion by supporting access to e-payment services among the unbanked in Lesotho. And the indicator is the percentage of increase in numbers of e-transactions in Lesotho. We're expecting the 40% increase of number of e-transactions there. So as we develop e-payment system, as we provide information superhighways and 4G penetration rate will be heightened, then we expect the more e-transactions based on that, which is a very good indicator actually. And then improved visibility, thirdly, improved visibility and accounting of government cash payment. So increase in the number of e-payment transactions for government cash disbursement in Lesotho is baseline is 2%. The target is 15%. Oh, I made a mistake in the previous indicator. So actual e-transaction baseline was 40%, but target is 90% by year 2025. So, which will be, either way, they are all dramatic increase of the services. So based on this. And then ultimately, what are you going to achieve from this project will be in terms of impact, the supporting job creation and economic growth of rural areas in Lesotho through investment in digital infrastructure. So here the indicators given was the number of direct and indirect jobs created as a result of additional investment in digital infrastructure by year 2032. So, well, if the baseline is 500 and we are talking about 3,000 jobs created from this investment. Okay, this is a rough like a screening of the PDM, and then let's take a look at the actual description of project concept paper. I emphasized there are two big like pillars of the PCP. First is as is the current situation, and then the second is your actual project plan. So here, what we see is the background information first. So they illustrate the ICT sector introduction in Lesotho first, market overview and mobile market, transmission network, and e-services and electronic payment. So it is well, I think, structured. So you start from the market and then moving to the mobile and transmission network hardware and moving to e-services and electronic payment system. And then what about the bank side? So you provide the Lesotho information and later you emphasize the donor side priorities. So AFDV activities in the country, what kind of the AFDVs or activities when projects were implemented in the particular sector. So the reason you emphasize this is in line with the existing initiative, this new project will be make a linkage with the previous initiatives. So we are not just an island, we are not in the middle of nowhere. So our project is kind of the continuation of the determined initiative of AFDV in the country. And then development partner activities and donor coordination arrangement. Since the Paris Declaration, we emphasize the coordination or harmonization of the donors. So who are the usual suspects of e-payment systems and all other? Here in this country, World Bank and United Nations Development Program, UNDPs, are active. Also ITU, International Telecommunication Union, has funded the deployment of broadband wireless for the backbone, and etc. So the next is a project rational. So development issues project is aiming to address is here written. So as Lesotho is still using National Strategic Development Plan and SDP to implement this vision for 2020 and etc. So what the purpose of this is we're trying to align with the existing government plan which will be emphasizing the mobile and digital infrastructure and the transition to the digital economy, and etc. So it shows the mobile coverage and fiber provision and e-services centers. Government is determined, however, still the service is limited, though this is a main point of this part, including the e-payments. And also capacity building. So capacity building is needed, and etc. So rationale for the bank's involvement is digital infrastructure was initially initiated from the AFDB. However, currently the country is struggling, so there is a need for their involvement, and etc. So above all, this is phase 2 project. So in line with phase 1 project, it's necessary to continue this growth engine. And then actual project description is followed. So previously, it was the project rationale, and this part is a project description. So project design and components are explained here from component 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have all screened before at PDM. And then project cost are written here. So implementation arrangement is written here, and procurement and financial arrangements are here, and sustainability issue is here, commercial, environmental, and economic sustainabilities, and the cross-cutting issues like gender and environment. So we don't leave anyone behind, so you have to show this project is inclusive enough. Yeah. And then availability of baseline data, and etc. And participatory process and public consultations, environmental safeguards and monitoring arrangements, and potential risk and mitigation measures. Let's see what kind of risks are here. Insufficient demand for 4G service in rural areas, as we are targeting for rural population, so this is actually concern. So, but risk mitigation factors will be, the impact benefit will be greatest in the rural areas, as they are most digitally, financially, and socially excluded members of the society. Another risk will be low demand for OPGW, fiber, in this area. So we consult to encourage them to use this to improve the reliability of the mobile phone. So once there's a demand of the mobile phone, the demand of this fiber should be high. And individual fragmented interest by ecosystem players. So, well, sometimes interests are different, varied, but we need the stakeholder engagement to discuss incentives toward the digitizing payments, and etc. So you provide the risk, and you provide also mitigation factors. And issues on which team seeks guidance, selectivity, implementation arrangement, and the conclusion. This is a fairly intensive PCP, and then annexes, you see here the map of Lesotho, and then because we are building the national fiber infrastructure, so how your information superhighway will be constructed here throughout the country. So this 20-page length of a project concept paper of AFDB. Hello, welcome back. My second example is from WeGo. This is WeGo Solution Finder. Solution Finder is not exactly the project concept paper, but this is a digital-based applications for a project for WeGo. This is a newly launched resource designed to process and diagnose the urban challenges of local governments and match cities' needs with advanced solutions available for export by smart city consultant tech companies and development aid agencies and etc. So all WeGo member governments are eligible to submit an application detailing the urban challenges that their city is currently facing. So The categories are very extensive, from public transportation to traffic management, to healthcare, education, agriculture, citizen participation, the blockchain. I think virtually everything. This is the way to apply for Vigo projects. First of all, you have to start an online application to register for Vigo Activator account. So just visit the Vigo website and click on the Activator Discover and link to your personal dashboard. On the dashboard, make sure that Vigo Solution Finder is selected. And then click on Start Application to fill out the online application form. So this will lead to a general information page that give you on how to fill out the online application form. On the very next page, your actual application starts. You will be asked to select the categories to which you will be applying. Whether you're applying for e-government or education or transportation, just click and then move to the next page and enter a brief description of the urban challenges your city is facing on the space provided here. So something like this, public transportation, if it's a public transportation category, so just punch in some of those challenges you're facing, okay? And then after entering the brief descriptions, you will have access to the online application form, which will require information on the urban challenge. But you have to prepare the current status of the urban challenge, like executive summary, current stakeholders, and invested funds until now, and expected outcomes. This part is very similar to the PCP part. So remember, you have to equipped with your existing issues and problems, and think about what are you going to do. So what kind of expected output that you can provide. And then ICT and governance, and etc. Okay, and then you have to provide the solutions on the ICT and governance issue, and also here. And number 7, fill out the online application form completely, and then you click on export to receive a PDF of the online application form. Then once you are done filling out this form, proceed to the end of the application, and then you can submit the application to send your application to Vigo. So here is an FAQ, frequently asked questions, so you can freely consult the timing and then applications process and deadlines and actual process of this your applications. Okay, good luck everybody and all the best. Okay, thank you for your listening and participation. As I mentioned before, project concept paper is one very important step. However, it's a very tiny step. So you have to get approval. The next you have to prepare a proposal, and so actual action plan can be made in a more detailed manner. But first step is very important always. So if you design well, then your project will give a birth in the end. So good luck everyone. Thank you very much.